Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Frontline Advantage. I'm so excited today to welcome Chris Brown from CADDi. Chris and I actually met one another by interacting on the MFG mic drop that you might be familiar with. That was the first ever one that Jim Mayer put on together with creators at IMTS in Chicago just a few weeks back. And Chris and I got a chance to interact there a little bit. I have been so impressed, both from what I've heard from Jim, as well as just learning more from Chris firsthand around CADDi's growth as an organization that sort of has been winning in the Japanese market, now coming to the US market and making a huge splash. It's a name that maybe some of us weren't as familiar with a few months back and is now becoming a more common name around all the good work they're doing in manufacturing, the growth they're experiencing. Chris is going to talk to us about CADDi Drawer, his software solution, why he got involved, and more. So without further ado, welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much for having me on your show here today. It was a really fun way that we met, getting to sing karaoke and watch each other sing karaoke. It was a great event that Jim put on for us.
Yeah, it was a real blast. Tell us a little bit more about CADDi for those who are fresh to the concept.
What we believe in here at CADDi is that everyone in an organization makes critical business decisions every single day, and that democratizing the data that's needed to make those decisions empowers everyone across the organization, from the CEO all of the way down to the press brake operator and the machinist themselves. And so what we do here at CADDi, being in the manufacturing industry, we know that the most common communication tool on a shop floor is the drawing. And what we're doing then is attaching all of those points of data from around the organization that otherwise tend to be very siloed directly back to the drawing and make these drawings hyper searchable. That way, when there's a press brake operator who's looking at a part and doesn't necessarily know how they're going to make a bend in a part, can find a similar one with the manufacturing instructions that had already been written in order to cross-reference that, rather than walking around the office and shoulder tapping, on the shoulder of the manufacturing engineer who designed the part, or having to go to, some other person in the organization who's been there longer for that institutional knowledge. We really truly believe that when people have the data in their hands to make the decisions themselves, they enjoy their job more, they're more productive, they can get through their work a little bit faster, and they take more meaning in it because it was their decisions that were driven throughout the course of a day, rather than having to ask somebody else how to do their job consistently.
I love that. Would it be fair to say you're a source of truth?
Absolutely. While we're not a system of record, right, because the systems of record are the ERP system or the quality system or the procurement system or all of these other siloed systems around an organization where people tend to not have cross-departmental access to those tools. We believe in ourselves as more of a system of insight. It's a layer over the top of those systems of record where we're only bringing up the critical information that needs to be democratized around the organization to aid in these decisions.
I like that system of insight. That's the first time I've heard that. I really like that description.
I think our marketing team's going to try to coin that one here pretty soon.
Yeah, that's a good one. Who are your typical customers? Is it all across broadly manufacturing? Is it enterprise at a certain focus within manufacturing? Tell us more about that.
It's everyone, and to provide some contrast here, right? It's everyone, including a 15, 20 person machine shop in the Bay Area of California, Hilltop Manufacturing. Give them a little shout out there, all the way up to and including Subaru. Right? So you can see how there's such a wide spectrum of customers that use the tool. Now the use cases get a little bit different, right? When you're at that smaller organization, it tends to be more about getting hands on data faster, figuring out how we did things in the past. So, aiding in training. right? And when you get up to the very large organization, it tends to be a lot of cost savings and time savings, things along those lines. Engineers being turned into librarians, for example, in order to have to go comb through massive, cloud files, finding the drawing they're looking for, or procurement persons trying to figure out who they've sourced parts to in the past. But at the end of the day, how they're using it doesn't change the intention of the software. And that intention really boils back down to get the data in the hands of the people so that they can get through their day a little bit faster without having to really rely on everyone around them.
In relation to that, one of the trends as we think about people in manufacturing, and I'd love to get your thoughts. We've heard from manufacturers, this might be extreme, but it's very directionally correct, which is if you compare pre-COVID to today, just the past 4 years, and mind you, this is while wages are up. So for everyone who says there's a wage, average tenure, according to this research from us, down 85%, time in position down 89%, 3-month retention rate down 44%. So when you talk about that institutional knowledge in people's heads, you've got people retiring, you've got people leaving the workplace for whatever reasons, and they're taking that knowledge and that process. And if there's no system of insight, where is that going? It's being lost.
I'm going to back you up. I'm going to back you up a little bit better here, Vivek.
Oh, please. I'll stop sharing and I'll let you let me pull up.
No, you can leave that up there by all means. I just want to make sure that this particular stat is correct. So CADDi, during IMTS, we released our American Manufacturers Pressure and Productivity Index. And one of the most absolutely shocking statistics that was in this was in regards to institutional knowledge. And where that boils down to is 83% of manufacturing executives are planning on retiring in the next 10 years. And out of that, 63% of those people believe that all of an organization's institutional knowledge is going to walk out the front doors with them.
Wow.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
And with that, it doesn't surprise me with the stats that you just shared there, because people need access to this data. Young employees, this new generation, I was lucky enough that my youngest years, I didn't have the internet. In my high school career, I had the internet. I didn't have a cell phone until after college and things along those lines, right? So I can kind of float this line between generations. But the newer generation is so used to going to Google to find the answer, so used to being able to research the answer through their phone, through their computer, through technology, that it's almost I would love to do a survey on this and understand statistics and data around it, but it seems almost scary to rely on the senior employee at this time. It seems scary to approach them. They get frustrated with themselves because they can't find the information by Googling it. Obviously, the internal company information isn't on Google. And if you're a machine press brake operator, it's unlikely that you have access to the systems and, the PDMs and the PLMs that cost a lot of money per seat. And so it doesn't surprise me that our 3-month retention rate is down so much. They get into this role. They didn't intuitively know how to do their role. They were afraid to ask the person. There was nowhere to find the information. So what do you do in that event other than move on? Right? Yeah. And I think there's two things to be talked about there. First and foremost, we need to digitize this institutional knowledge and make it readily available to these employees. And that's really what we believe we're doing here at CADDi. But beyond, the career that I have, we need to make ourselves more approachable. We need to help the young generation understand, look, I might be typing away on a computer. I might be on a phone call. But if you run into a question, interrupt me, please, right? Yeah. Because there is that disconnect these days between the people who have the 20 years of experience and all of the knowledge that comes with it, and the new employees. And that disconnect is how that we communicate. And we just need to make it known and acceptable to interrupt our days.
I'm doing some go-to-market, trying to learn how to be a great salesperson like you. And some people have said, you don't sell the solution or the opportunity, you sell the pain. And sometimes even with a solution like ours, there's a human nature component where there's a fear of someone senior saying, I'm going to lose control of the narrative or the dialogue if we democratize and we allow others to have a say, with these voices and kiosks, and even similarly with CADDi. How have you been so effective at identifying the right types of organizations to really grow this thing as rapidly as you have? I mean, faster than almost any other salesperson I've come across in manufacturing, and just a good person. People gravitate towards you. You talked to me a little bit about the long game as well. Tell us a little bit more about your magic on how you've been so successful.
Absolutely. It's about finding people that agree with that notion, right? People that have that same opinion, using the tools that are at your disposal in order to find like-minded individuals, right? And you can do that in a bubble, right? In a world outside of trade shows and events and things along those lines. You can find those influencers on LinkedIn. You can find the people that are talking about democratizing data. You can find the people that are talking about how do we pass on this knowledge. But what's really interesting to me is at these events like IMTS, like the karaoke party afterwards, or like our own happy hour event, when you start getting people talking about it, even if they're not publicly exuding this desire to democratize data, when you start talking to them and helping them understand, look, do you need to control that decision? What control over that decision benefits your organization? They really start to open up their eyes to how many mundane decisions they're making every single day that they don't need to be the controller of. I have yet to actually talk to anyone in this industry that truly wants to hold all of the cards, right? There might be a few of them out there. They're probably in older industries. Unfortunately for them, private equity firms are probably going to come buy them up and merge them into a bunch of other companies at some point and then put the technology in place. But, without saying 100%, the 99.5% of people truly understand that the lack of data leads to slower motions, leads to employee dissatisfaction, and they want to be a part of changing that.
That's wonderful. And it actually inspires me a lot in what we're doing, because there's this notion of, okay, if I empower my people and they start vocalizing things, will that lead to more challenges for me? And really what we're saying is you're getting more data, you're getting that insights while they're there to benefit you as an organization more than anything else. And I love how well you've democratized kind of this data and this process to have it in a centralized system of insight. And you've really proven you can be successful. Are there any other tactics? I know we talked a little bit about playing the long game, what you maybe see that you do really well at CADDi, and why you chose to come there when there's so many things you could have done. What was that sort of lit your fire to say, I really want to go lead this here in the US?
Yeah, so if you look at my background between kind of growing up in manufacturing at a company called Proto Labs and then what I would say maturing at an organization called Xometry,
yeah,
what those two organizations do is a lot of what CADDi does, right? They take and they compare these parts to other parts in order to determine a price. They compare where they've sourced them to in the past in order to. The only difference there is the data is not democratized. It's locked down either in a machine learning model or in an AI model. And when Yashiro, our CEO, approached me and started showing me this tool, it became so apparent that not only does this tool do what I've been doing just, locked in a bubble my entire career, but so much more, right? It actually affects the people's lives who are on the shop floor, who have been my friends for years upon years, right? That was the greatest thing about working at Proto Labs, is you couldn't get out to your car at the end of the day unless you walked across the shop floor. And to know now that I'm helping those direct individuals, as well as the procurement teams and the supply chain teams and all of these other teams that I've been helping throughout my career, really inspired me to understand why and how you democratize data, why putting it in somebody's hands leads to better decision making around an organization. I think the last thing that I'll say on this particular, to go back to what you were saying there a minute ago, You're right. There are some leaders who are afraid of allowing other people to make these decisions. But that's what I find is that's primarily because they've never given access to data like this in the past.
Mm.
And yes, if that employee doesn't have the data to make the decision, they can cost you a lot of money. They can cost you a lot of time. They can cost you a lot of relationships and quality scores and things along those lines. But genuinely, people want to make the right decision when they have the data that's in their hand. And even when they have the data that's in their hand, if they're not 100% sure about their decision, they will go seek consensus from people around them and leaders around them, and they will come to the right decision, in a much more expedient way. It's the difference between an employee walking up to you saying, "Hey, how do I handle this?" And, "Hey, I went through a bunch of data and here's how I believe I handle this. Do you agree?" And that's really empowering for leaders as well.
Totally. And that's a really good example. Tell us just real quick a before and after scenario. So before CADDi, what's their world like? Data is obviously not sort of the system of insight. It's not democratized. People running around tapping people on the shoulders versus after. And how do you measure that from an ROI perspective? Is that time saved? Is that, number of people who are able to kind of do certain tasks that they weren't able to do? Tell us what that looks like too.
Sure, absolutely. I'm going to try quickly to find just another. I'm going to put all of these stats just on one page here eventually. Um, but here, let's talk about this for a second, right? 60% of procurement professionals say they've sourced parts at a higher cost than what they knew was possible because they didn't have sufficient supplier data to negotiate effectively. The same percentage of respondents says that they've missed an opportunity to consolidate suppliers or negotiate volume discounts because they didn't have historical data. Here's one that should be scary for all my fellow sales reps on the phone. 71% of sales professionals have quoted and sold unprofitable deals for their companies because they didn't have access to historical engineering and procurement data that they needed in order to quote effectively. That
Ah,
that should scare a lot of leaders out there, right?
yeah.
You're
I just don't
sourcing
even
parts,
have the data.
right? You're sourcing parts for more than you have to. You're quoting parts for less than you have to in an economy where money's expensive and rather hard to come by. And so the business impact can be massive, right? But those are just ROI, calculable data points right there. I think one of the things that ties yours and I's business so closely together is the non-mathematical impact that it can have on an organization. It's that, again, it goes back to that job satisfaction. It goes back to time saved so that they can do other things. Now, they could do other things like build more product for the company, sell more product for the company, and do those types of things. Or they can leave the office on time for the first time in the last 2 years and go be with their family and start enjoying their family life a little bit more so that when they come back to work, they're happy, they're energized, they're engaged, and they want to help the business grow.
It's funny you bring up that example. I will actually just hit on that point real quick. This is an example where someone in an organization had actually recommended that the company change its scheduling from a 30-minute unpaid lunch to a 45-minute unpaid lunch and to stay 15 minutes later. The company researched it, said it's cost neutral, it would require a little bit of a schedule change, but let's open it up to our workforce and ask. They
Mm-hmm.
actually did that. The workforce voted. They saw the results in real time. And 77% actually we want to just do 30-minute unpaid lunch because we want to get home on time to see our families. But the interesting part is even though no change occurred, employee loyalty went up because the person who made the suggestion said, I felt heard rather than I write a suggestion and it goes into a suggestion box and I never know what comes of it, even if the company did do something about it, but probably often doesn't even research it. And all the employees who had a chance to vote said, this is something that doesn't affect the company a lot, but it affects us a ton. And we appreciated having a say and a voice on it. And so I really like that. And I like your point on the like-mindedness too. There are two demographics we looked at when we were thinking about go-to-market. Your sort of best-in-class, forward-thinking, early adopters who say, I just want to be the best, a continuous improvement. And I
Yep.
think that's exactly what you're saying is focus on those like-minded individuals. The other demographic that might have made sense on paper, but just did not have real interest are those organizations that are having unionization drives and votes right now, where the workforce has such a contentious relationship with management. I'm not talking about those that have been in place. I'm talking about what we're seeing right now in these past couple of years. And you would think they would badly want to solve this the right way and say, let's work together. And the reality is the reason they're having these drives often, assuming your pay is competitive, is because of all these other factors that while people talk about the headline number of pay, it's actually a lot of other components. People not feeling valued, people feeling unsafe, people feeling like there's not a growth opportunity for them within the organization. And so that just creates this dynamic that's not healthy. And so your point is really, really sound. And I think it's a great example of a company that can be successful on focusing on the good in organizations and people and helping solve a problem, but not just saying, okay, we're going to go after, these companies that are clearly, every company needs to have more data and insights, but it sounds like focusing on the ones that really want it rather than trying to convert the non-believers, even at the scale you're all at. You're at a much larger scale and there's still such an opportunity to find more like-minded folks. So I think that's a really great message for people to take to heart too.
Pick the low-hanging fruit, right? Why make your job harder than it needs to be by trying to change something that doesn't necessarily want to be changed? Find the people that want to change. Find the people that understand that when you give people access to the data that made the decision and they understand the decision, even if they're not happy with it, when they understand the decision, they can still march forward.
Fantastic. Chris, any other thoughts, insights you want to share related to your work at CADDi or just how awesome you are as a salesperson?
No, I think the big thing right now, we're obviously in an interesting economy, interesting time in the country. We've got a lot of people trying to fix a lot of different things right now, and people just need to focus on the humans at the end of the day. When you're helping the humans that are around you, when you're helping, whether that be an employee, whether that be a coworker who's in a peer role or helping your boss, or outside of your career, just be focused on helping people and you'll win. If you're trying to force square pegs into round holes or trying to be nefarious in any particular type of way, you're not going to win.
Love it. I have the tagline, making our customers and employees heroes. If we serve them, we benefit as well. And I love that philosophy and motto. Chris, thank you so much for coming on, telling the world even more about CADDi as you're getting this huge brand awareness out there. And we're awesome. We feel privileged to play a very small part in that and to have worked with you on this MFG mic drop and hopefully more to come. So thanks for coming on the Frontline Advantage.
Definitely looking forward to working together with you a lot more in the future.